Hello! Welcome to the Enscape Basic Training for SketchUp on Windows. This training course contains 7 lessons. You should expect around 6 to 8 hours in total to follow along. That's right, this is a follow-along course. For each lesson, we'll first ask you to just watch and follow what's shown on screen. Every couple of minutes, we'll ask you to pause the video and catch up in form of an exercise. Alright, let's get started with the training course then. What are the topics we will cover during this training course? We'll cover the Enscape basics and how to explore your design, how to navigate the 3D scene. We'll explain the creation of exterior and interior renderings at day and nighttime, the usage of materials and assets, the creation of fly-throughs and videos, 360-degree panoramas and standalones. We'll finish the course with some general tips and tricks. If you haven't purchased an Enscape license yet and you've installed Enscape for the first time, this will automatically start a 14-day trial. In this case, this is what you will see. There is a watermark visible in the bottom right corner of this Enscape window. This will be the case until you've reached the end of your 14-day trial phase. If you don't obtain and activate a license key after that, Enscape will appear completely watermarked for you. If you're using the Enscape trial right now, you can still follow along with this training. We will cover limitations in further detail when they'll become relevant during the training. Let's first go ahead and set up the sample files. You'll need to follow the steps we'll cover. You can download the training content, including the sample model, provided in the description below or on the Enscape sample projects page. All the textures and materials are included in the sample training content. So in the training content that you find under the link provided, you can find a zip file that contains all the textures and additional content that is necessary for this particular lesson. Unzip this file into any folder you want. You can also use cloud services like Dropbox or OneDrive. Please notice that Google Drive doesn't work. So ideally, it should be stored somewhere locally on your machine. Run the map this folder as network drive x.bat file to mount the folder as drive x. Now Enscape can find all necessary files under that location. The reason we are going through this is SketchUp and thereby Enscape is linking the textures and other external resources of the project. So in order to find them on any machine, whatever your username is, we have stored them under x/visresources. Before we start, make sure you have a new X drive that contains the folder, Viz resources and the training content. Alright, now that we've done that, you can open the training project from the X drive, Training Projects, Enscape Basic Training, SketchUp Win, Enscape Training Visitor Center Lesson 01-02.skp. And once SketchUp is opened, you can click the Start button to open Enscape. If you have 2 screens that you're working on, that's ideal. You can continue working in SketchUp in full screen and just move the Enscape window to your other screen. If you're just working on one screen, or for the sake of this training, we are going to attach both windows on the left and right half of the screen. It's perfectly enough if you just grab the Enscape window and move it to the right edge or the left edge of the screen, whichever you prefer. Enscape will then be attached to that half and you will be asked what window to attach on the other half of the screen. For this, we select SketchUp. Now, I want you to move around a little bit in Enscape. Let me show you how to do that. Right-click on any object and hold the right mouse button. Make sure to click on some geometry and not into the sky, because that won't do anything. Now, holding the right mouse button over an object, move the mouse, the camera will move around the point you clicked. If everything works smoothly, great. If not, your computer might be a little underpowered to run the default quality of Enscape on this particular sample. If that's the case, don't worry. Open the visual settings, which is this button in the top right corner, and dial down the rendering quality setting. Let's go all the way down to draft, just to make sure you have a good performance, because once again, this lesson is going to be all about movement, so we want you to be able to move confidently. For my case, however, my machine is powerful enough. I can go back to high, or even ultra if I want it. You can review Enscape's system requirements in our knowledge base. But I'm gonna go with the standard settings for now and go with high. If you're working on just one monitor, you may also want to use the Stay on Top option if you want to keep SketchUp in full screen and work with Enscape in its own smaller window in the foreground. You can absolutely do that. We just want to make sure Enscape will not jump into the background if, you click somewhere in SketchUp. To make sure that is the case, open the Enscape window settings. That's the button right next to the visual settings. And under Preferences, you can enable or make sure it is enabled, pin Enscape window on top of the host application. That way, you can have Enscape as its own separate window up here and still work in the background in SketchUp. But as I said, I personally am going to go with this half-by-half solution, and you can absolutely do that as well. Whatever you change in your SketchUp scene is being synchronized into Enscape right away. Let's check that out. In general, whatever you do, whatever you change in your SketchUp scene, as long as the Live Updates button up here is activated, it's going to be synchronized to Enscape. So make sure that is activated for now. Okay, now it's up to you to go through the steps we just examined. Pause the video and download the training package from the link below this video. Once it's downloaded, unzip the file to a local folder of your choice. Use the Map this folder as network drive EXE.bat to create a new drive on your machine. If you want to move the folder at some point, you can use the unmapped drive EXE.bat to disconnect it. Open the first SketchUp project you'll find in the Training Projects folder. Then it's time to open Enscape. If you do this for the first time and you can't find the Enscape Start button, you can find the Enscape menu under Extensions. Simply right-click in your SketchUp toolbar area to enable the Enscape toolbar. Once Enscape is open, check the performance. Right-click and hold the right mouse button on any geometry and move your mouse to orbit. If you experience lagging or a bad frame rate, consider dialing down the rendering quality for better comfort when learning to move around. Once you've gone through the steps, we'll see each other in Lesson 2. Welcome back to Lesson 2 of the Enscape Basic Training. In this lesson, we will have a look at how to visualize your scene with Enscape, how to explore your model with SketchUp and Enscape. We'll apply various render styles, and we'll learn how to change the time of day. All of that we'll first do in SketchUp before we jump in the deep water and learn how to do it in Enscape. Afterwards, we'll learn how to place collaborative annotations in your scene and how to create our first rendering. In the first part of the lesson, we'll only guide Enscape by navigating in SketchUp. So we can do that, we'll first synchronize our SketchUp viewport to the Enscape camera. We'll review basic navigation in SketchUp, and then we'll learn how to preview the part of the screen that will be rendered out. This is called a save frame. It will essentially act as our view through the camera lens. Then, after finding the right perspective, we'll go ahead and render our first image. I assume that you are familiar with SketchUp at this point. So I want to show you that you can just continue using your navigation skills that you've learned in SketchUp already. And to do that, you have to enable this button here, Synchronize Views. Once that's the case, you will see that Enscape will just synchronize your movement from SketchUp. So if you don't want to worry about learning how to move in Enscape, you don't have to. You can just, continue navigating in SketchUp like you used to, and Enscape will simply follow. So let's go through the basic steps of navigation in SketchUp. This is mostly being done with the middle mouse button on your mouse. If you just scroll the scroll wheel on your mouse, you can scroll back and forth to move backwards and forwards. You can hold down the middle mouse button to pivot around the center or around the center of the camera in SketchUp. You can hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan left, right, up and down. So yeah, that's my way of navigating in SketchUp. If you're used to a different navigation workflow in SketchUp, you can absolutely also stick with that. The default resolution Enscape will export in is Full HD. That's landscape format. Let us enable a preview of what that image will look like by enabling the save frame. We want to see what the extent of our image is going to be. So to see that, I want you to click this button up here, the Save Frame button. What will happen is Enscape will hide the parts of the view that will not be on the image you export. Adjust your view if needed by moving in SketchUp. Once you're satisfied with your image, we can go ahead and click the Screenshot button in the Enscape window. A window will pop up asking us where to save this image. It is up to you where you want to store your screenshot, but you can use the screenshot folder right in the basic training folder we have stored on your X drive. I will call my rendering lesson2_screenshot1. Click Save. Enscape will render an image and you have your first memory of how you learned to synchronize your camera from SketchUp into Enscape. Let's disable the save frame again. And now it's your turn again. Pause the video and find the same perspective of the sample model, and render an image just like you just saw. Enable the save frame to make it easier to find the right angle, and disable the save frame again after. Once you're done, continue the video from here. In part 2 of this lesson, we want to examine closer how Enscape and SketchUp are working alongside to leverage your existing SketchUp design workflows. We'll discuss some of the information Enscape reads from your SketchUp project, like scene information and sun angle. First up, we'll discuss scenes and how they translate from SketchUp to Enscape. This particular sample project doesn't contain any scenes, since we're actually gonna cover them in more detail in the later parts of this training, including how to create and manage SketchUp scenes from within Enscape. However, for now, all you need to know is that if you decide to add scenes in SketchUp, they will be displayed in Enscape, including view settings such as visibility and daytime per scene. They can be accessed by switching through scenes directly in SketchUp, or by accessing the view management in Enscape, which we'll cover in more detail in the upcoming lessons. It pays off too to review the shadow settings in SketchUp. While we'll explore how to change the daytime directly in Enscape, feel free to change the values in the shadow settings in SketchUp and see how Enscape correctly synchronizes the sun and shadow angles from SketchUp. During the upcoming exercise, I'll ask you to change something about the scene, model an object and apply materials to it through SketchUp. You can get creative if you like, or keep it as simple as modeling a simple cube and applying one of the existing SketchUp materials to it. Alright, and again it's your turn. For the next exercise, go ahead and add something to the scene in SketchUp. There is a direct connection from your SketchUp scene to your Enscape visualization. No need to export or import anything. Just model something whatever you feel like, or import parts of an existing scene you made previously and check what they look like. Then set the right mood by adjusting the shadow settings in SketchUp. Pick a nice time of day for your image. Lastly, let's create another rendering. Don't forget to enable the save frame to get the right view. I'll store my image in the same folder like before on my EXE drive and call it lesson2_screenshot2.png. Take your time, pause the video, and once you feel ready, we'll continue in the next part of the lesson. In the next part of this lesson, we will slowly dive into navigation in Enscape. This part will span a total of 3 exercises, during which we'll increase the difficulty step by step. We will first learn how to use the mouse only to explore the scene, before adding in the keyboard for the second exercise. After that, we will explore further possibilities to navigate your scene. Before continuing, we want to actively disable the view synchronization from SketchUp. The reason is, with synchronization enabled, Enscape will synchronize the field of view as well. That's the amount of zoom that is applied to the camera from SketchUp. Instead, I want us to go with the Enscape field of view, which by default is more convenient to navigate in. Even worse, if we left the synchronization on, your movement in Enscape would be reset as soon as you move just a little bit in SketchUp. So while you can decide which method works best for you after this lesson, let's ensure the view synchronization is disabled for the next steps. Also, because we don't need the SketchUp side of things right now, I want you to maximize the Enscape window again. You can just maximize it by pressing this maximize button in the top right corner. And it's gonna jump into full screen mode. So let's learn how to navigate in Enscape. Here, too, we'll start out by just using the mouse. Scrolling up, just as in SketchUp, is moving forward. It is a little different here, however. We are always moving with the same pace, with the same distance forward, where in SketchUp it's always relative to the camera pivot or center. In SketchUp, the closer you get to the center of the camera, the slower you're gonna get. In Enscape, if you scroll forwards, you're always gonna be moving with the same speed through any obstacles. So, scrolling forwards, moving forwards. Scrolling backwards, moving backwards. Holding the middle mouse button, that means clicking in the scroll wheel and holding it down, is pan, just like in SketchUp as well. We can look around by clicking and holding the left mouse button, just like the look around tool in SketchUp. We can pivot, rotate around objects, by right-clicking and holding the right mouse button and moving the mouse. Keep in mind, this only works if you click on geometry. So if I click somewhere into the sky, nothing's gonna happen. But if I right-click on this tree, for example, it's gonna move to take this tree as the center of its rotation and rotate around this tree from now on. So this is also a viable form of movement. Okay? Apart from that, you can also double-click any geometry with the left mouse button to get to the point you've clicked really fast. Now, this is really helpful if you, for whatever reason, spawn really far outside of your model. You probably don't want to scroll a long time to get there. So we can just double-click on any geometry and Enscape will bring us there very swiftly. And again, it's on you to take the steps just shown. Pause the video and take your time. Once you're done, let's continue. Now let's add some keys to the mouse controls. In general, you can always move faster by holding the Shift key as well. So if you hold the Shift key on your keyboard and scroll with your mouse wheel, you will move faster than if not. On top of that, you can also use the Control key to move even faster. Once you feel familiar with this, let's move on from only using the mouse to navigate the scene to including the keyboard. There is more to Enscape than just creating nice images. With Enscape, you can explore your model very easy and create new SketchUp scenes with different setups, especially inside buildings. This can be helpful. Alright, let's navigate with some keys. If you have ever played 3D games on your computer, this might be familiar. If not, this might be new to you, but bear with me because it's a great way of navigation and I highly recommend to get familiar with it. Press the W key to move forwards. Press the S key to move backwards. Press A to move left and D to move right. But instead of beginning to move in all directions now, try this instead. Hold the W key and the left mouse button at the same time. You'll realize that you are moving forward, and by moving the mouse left and right now, you can steer in which direction you're going. Same with up and down, by the way. Also, don't forget that holding the Shift key or the Control key or both at the same time will make you move much faster. The arrow keys on the bottom right of your keyboard offer the same functionality as WASD. You can use any of the two sets of keys, but most people prefer the WASD keys. The reason is that while in fly mode, you can additionally fly downwards using Q and upwards using E. Before we look in detail at the fly and walk modes, however, it's once again on you to go through the steps shown on screen. Pause the video and continue once you have a good feeling for the navigation in Enscape with mouse and keyboard. If all of this seems a little bit much, you can take notes, of course. You can pause, you can review this video at any point, but you can also, at any point, just click this question mark up here in the top right corner and review all of these controls that we've just discussed in one handy page. You can also press the H key to open. That's H for help, to open this help panel at any time. If you are lost anywhere now and you don't know how to return, if you have a numpad on your keyboard, that's the collection or block of numbers on the right side. It doesn't unfortunately work with the top numbers, so you have to have a numpad and it has to be enabled. The numpad key should be illuminated as a sign that it's enabled. If your keyboard does that, if it doesn't illuminate the numpad key and your numpad still works, that's fine for me. You can always press the 0 key on your numpad to return to our first initial view. So whenever you get lost, you can just press the 0 key on your numpad and return to your starting point. On top of that, you can press the 4 to view your entire model from the left, 6 to view your entire model from the right, 8 to view it from the back, 2 to view it from the front, and 5 to view it from the top. As a small mental help, I like to think that the 5 is my project, and you know, the 4 is viewing it from the left, 6 is viewing it from the right, etc, etc. So as you see, we start in fly mode. So right now we are not constrained to the floor. We are somewhere above the surface. To switch between walk mode and fly mode, you can click this button in the top right Enscape menu. We can either open this and switch between walk mode or fly mode by selecting any of these 2 options, or we can just press the spacebar on your keyboard to switch to walk mode. As you see, I fell down a couple meters and now I'm constrained to the floor. This changes a couple of things. Most importantly, it introduces collisions. We can no longer move through any obstacles, which is great for indoor reviews, so you're not accidentally flying outside of the building or something like that. If you want to move through some geometry, like for example a door, you can always just press the spacebar, switch to fly mode for a brief second, and then press the spacebar again and move back to walk mode. A really helpful tool in Enscape is the minimap, which you can enable by clicking this button here or by pressing the M key on your keyboard. And this doesn't look like much at first, because it is in fact adapting to the level you are on. So right now I'm hovering above the pool. Let's go closer to some actual geometry and you'll see better what it does. You can also zoom in or out by hovering over the minimap, scrolling in or out with your mouse wheel. That means scrolling down on your scroll wheel. It will extend your view of your environment in the minimap. It's a flat, top-down representation of your scene. This can help a lot to get a first overview of the environment. So here we have our Enscape building, and if you want to navigate using the minimap, you can do that as well by simply left-clicking onto the minimap, and you'll be transported to the point that you clicked on the map. So yeah, you can use that as well. And again, I want you to pause the video and go through the steps you see on screen. Navigate with the numpad, move through a wall or a door by switching from walk mode to fly mode and back again. Use the minimap to move around and have a look at the help panel. Take another rendering and save it in our renderings folder. Once you'd like to continue, unpause the video again. Now I want to show you how to change the visual appearance in Enscape. We will learn how to change the sun position directly in Enscape, and we'll also review the different rendering styles you can apply to your Enscape visualization. Apart from changing the sun angle directly through SketchUp, you can do it even quicker in Enscape by holding the Shift key and the right mouse button at the same time, then move the mouse. Moving the mouse left and right will change the sun position forwards and backwards along its natural trajectory, determined by the SketchUp shadows and geolocation settings. As an alternative to the mouse movement, you can simply press the keys U and I on the keyboard to achieve the same effect. Also, have you noticed the little clock showing up in the bottom right corner? It represents the daytime according to the data that's synchronized from SketchUp. You can perfectly analyze the influence of the sun on each part of your design by enabling the light view, one of the different visual styles you can apply to Enscape. You can find them in the visual settings up here in the top right corner of the Enscape window. It's the very first setting in the main tab, titled Style. Here, open the drop-down menu next to Mode and select Light View. The Enscape view will immediately turn into a heat map representing the lux intensity on each surface. Notice the scale that appeared at the top of the screen. It's adaptive, so it will change the minimum and maximum values used for the colors blue and red, depending on the light situation in the scene. You can change this by unchecking the automatic scale checkbox that appeared in the style settings area and define your own minimum and maximum values. Besides the light view, the mode dropdown also offers the options for white mode and polystyrol mode. Selecting these will make the colors in your scene appear as white to imitate a paper model in case of the white mode, and it will add a bit of translucency in case of the polystyrol mode. So it will appear as if it was made with a wax-like substance. This is great to imitate a miniature model style. If you prefer an even more stylized look, you can also add outlines to your visual style. This can help a lot to emphasize intricate shapes in particular. Check out the Enscape logo on the building and how it's instantly more readable. It's often enough to use this setting just slightly. And again, it's on you to try it out. Change the sun position in Enscape using Shift combined with the right mouse button and move the mouse, or use the U and I keys as an alternative. Try out the different render styles and take screenshots. Take your time. Pause the video. Have some fun. Once you have some nice renderings, we'll continue with the last part for this lesson. So, I mentioned taking notes before. If you've already brought out a sheet of paper and started writing things down, I totally understand you. And it's perfectly fine like that. But did you know Enscape can support you in this as well? You can actually take notes directly in the Enscape window. We call them collaborative annotations. Let's review how to set these up. It's good to know that if you save your SketchUp project, these annotations are going to be saved inside your SketchUp file as well. So, how can we start taking notes in Enscape? Well, there are two ways. The fastest one is probably to simply right-click an object in your scene. Just click, don't hold the right mouse button, as this would make the camera rotate instead, and you will see two options pop up. Select Create Issue. Enscape will then open the Collaborative Annotations panel and create a rendering. This will automatically become a part of the note we're taking. You will see the Details panel for the annotation you're creating, asking you for a title. You can enter a description and change the state to New, Done, In Progress, or Removed. Enscape will also display a visual marker for the annotation. Feel free to click Change Issue Position if you want the marker to appear somewhere else. At the bottom of the screen, you can click Create in order to store the collaborative annotation. The second way to store a note like this is by simply opening the Collaborative Annotations panel. It's the C key, or the second button from the left in the top left Enscape toolbar, and simply click the Create Issue button at the bottom of the panel. This will bring you the same note creation interface, but it will place the marker not on an object, but at the current place of the Enscape camera instead. Once we've gathered a list of annotations, we can easily review them swiftly by browsing through the Collaborative Annotations panel. And once again, now it's your turn. Create at least 2 collaborative annotations in your scene and get familiar setting them up. After creating them, Try locating them through the Collaborative Annotations panel and change these existing annotations. Again, be aware that these notes are being saved in your SketchUp file whenever you save it through SketchUp. Pause the video, and once you're done, let's review what we've learned in Lesson 2. You should now be able to visualize and explore your SketchUp scene with Enscape. Apply different render styles, like the light and polystyrol mode. You know how to change the sun angle, both in SketchUp and in Enscape. You can now take notes directly in Enscape using the Enscape Collaborative Annotations. Also, you have learned how to create renderings or screenshots using Enscape. You can always go back in the video if something is unclear. If everything is clear so far, let's continue learning how to render sophisticated images in Lesson 3. In this lesson, you will learn the essentials of image composition and visual settings. We will cover composition as a broader topic and explain the basics of using assets, materials, and artificial lights in Enscape. Alright, let's check out how to compose a simple view in Enscape. Let's begin with a general overview of what image composition is all about. For this, let's examine a few example renderings. Composition of visuals is a very broad topic. It is a craft that illustrates ideas and expresses an experience or a story. Looking at some of these visuals by Enscape users, we can interpret a certain mood and certain depictions that we can relate to from our individual experiences, as well as what the designer is trying to project to us. This could be a concept, a simple study of volumes, sunlight. It could be an idea of design representation through an orthographic view, a two-point perspective, or even a plan or a section. Or it could be a series of details and emotions where the motif is more than just an image. Enscape provides us with all the necessary tools to create such unique compositions. We will start with a training model that has minimal detail, and we will keep moving to more detailed models as we progress with the lesson. This image shows the detail with which we will begin composing images in Enscape. And this one shows how much detail we will end this lesson with. We will first set up a perspective and create a new view, and briefly review visual settings presets before we save a screenshot. Let's begin creating the first image. After clicking the Start button, a loading screen appears. Remember, there will be an exercise in a few minutes asking you to follow the steps I'm about to show you now. So don't worry about following along, just watch. You'll have the time to pause the video and catch up later on. The training model contains a pavilion with the visitor center block on top of it. You can see some context around it in the form of simple 3D blocks. This is the initial phase of any project, where the designers can understand and share preliminary dynamics of the project with their team, clients, or simply study aspects of the basic volumes for their own understanding of the project. Even at this level of simplicity, there's no limit to amazing compositions you can create using Enscape. Let's now try to find a nice perspective to work on and develop a pleasing composition. This seems to be a nice view. A view, however, could be quite abstract as well. Maybe something like this, where only hints of the project are available and there is more focus on a specific material, for example. There are many ways to compose an image. You could use the rule of thirds. You could incorporate the Fibonacci. You could find a reference image to project a certain idea. Or you could simply capture it like you would capture a photograph from your camera with a human scale in mind. I will now create a new scene and work on this composition. To do that, we will first click View Management or hit the F key on our keyboard. Then click Create View. Let's name it O1_top corner. You have the option to add the view to your favorites list by selecting the star icon on the right. Currently, we are using a given preset, but we will learn how to create a new preset in this lesson. Furthermore, we can change the camera and the sun settings at any point when creating or editing our view. We also have the option to use the sun settings directly from SketchUp if we uncheck this box here. For now, let's click Create and head over to the visual settings in Enscape to learn more about presets. I will now open the visual settings in the top right. In this case, the visual settings are linked to preset 1. If you click this orange chevron on the left, we can open the preset options. If we already made some changes to the visual settings, they are being saved in the current preset. By clicking the 3 dots, we can either duplicate the current preset and work on it further without losing the current preset, or we can simply create a new preset and start from scratch. I will go ahead and create a new one and name it O1_top corner. When we create a new preset, it will always reset to the default preset settings. I will select it as the currently active preset now. All the changes we will make in our visual settings from now on will be saved to this new preset. We can later add this or other saved presets to our individual named views in View Management. This helps you create and save unique visual styles for your project directly in Enscape. There are a lot of settings which we can play with, such as the exposure settings. I can let Enscape adjust the exposure for me automatically, or I can adjust it manually to my visual needs. We can adjust the field of view. We could also add some outlines to make the edges somewhat more visible in our composition. This looks quite good. Now, let's click on the Sky tab to adjust our sky settings. That's right, you don't have to worry so much about post-processing. Enscape allows you a lot of control directly within your project through its visual settings. Let's play with this a bit to project that image in mind which is right for our project. This is one of the major added values of real-time visualization with Enscape. All changes are directly visible and you can interactively edit the final look of your image in full size. As you can see, all the changes we made are being saved in the preset we created. This really adds to our everyday workflow in visualization. Good! Now that our preset is ready, we can go back to View Management. I will click Edit and edit our named view. And I can link directly our newly created preset to our view. There you go. We can enable Save Frame at this point to be able to see what will be visible in our final export. There are many factors that define a good composition. A project does not necessarily have to be detailed to create an amazing composition. It could also be as simple as it may be. Don't worry if you change the camera or the sun position too much. In the edit mode, you can always undo changes to the last saved positions for both. Keep in mind that changing camera settings has to be done in editing mode or they aren't saved. As you can see, by changing a few visual settings, we have much more control over our composition. Let's now come out of the editing mode. To do that, simply click Save to save changes you made to your named view. It is worth mentioning that all named views created inside Enscape are reflected back in SketchUp as well, and vice versa. It is totally synced with your CAD. In the next step, I'm going to render an image. Before I do that though, I'm going to set my rendering quality back to Ultra in order to get the most out of my still image. Now, to render the image, I'll click the Save Screenshot button. Now I can specify the location, which in my case will be the reference portfolio folder inside your Enscape Basic training project files. You can compare the images you created during this training with this reference portfolio later on. Type a name for the image. Choose a format you want the screenshot to be exported in and click Save. There we go. Our screenshot is ready, so is our first composition. At this point, after the rendering, you may want to consider setting your rendering quality back to high if you've experienced any performance issues earlier on. Now it's up to you. Just like in the lesson before, pause the video for the exercise part and go through the steps you see listed on the screen. If you don't know how to continue at any point, just rewind the video and check out what we did when the topic was covered. Alright, let's continue with the next part then. Let's explore the training model a bit more and create another view and another rendering. When we imagine rendering of still images, there are endless possibilities. In the initial stages of a design project, materials or colors are not as important as contextual correlation of elements. This is where Enscape visual style modes can take your workflow to the next level. Let's check them out one by one. Open the Enscape visual settings. For our next screenshot, we will create a new preset. Before we do that, let's delete the default preset. I will duplicate the preset we've created before and name the copy O2_side view. Once created, we have to make sure the new preset is selected, otherwise all changes will be applied to the selected preset. In the main tab, you will find the Modes dropdown under Styles. First, we have the White mode. As the name suggests, it turns your model completely whitewashed except for materials that might be transparent, such as glass or water. It is a commonly used model representation style in architecture design. Then we have the polystyrol mode. That gives you that glowy physical model look in polystyrol, allowing the light to transmit through your model surfaces. You can represent model visuals varying from neat minimal outlines to heavy sketchy ones. And then there is the light view mode. It represents how much light is hitting each surface in your project. This is displayed as a real-time heat map. Change to this mode and create stunning visuals of how light impacts your project at different times of the day. Enscape assists your workflow in representing your project better by allowing you to visualize such studies in a matter of seconds. Let's choose a different projection mode. You can change your projection mode by clicking here. I will select orthographic mode for this preset. Now, if you were using Enscape and you changed the mode from up here, please note that this will change the projection mode for your preset as well. Hence, for any named view it is linked to. The easiest way to navigate back to your scene in such a case would be to go to SketchUp and click on your named view there. It will change the projection mode back while opening your scene. Alright, so back to our preset. Apart from setting up an ortho view, let's change the aspect ratio of the image. I will click here on Output. We can see all these predefined resolutions, which we can definitely choose from. Or, let's say we want to export a square screenshot. We can do that by choosing a custom resolution. Let me type in 1080 in both fields and turn on the save frame to see how my screenshot will be saved with the changes we just made. We can also set up a default folder to save our screenshots to it automatically. Once again, I will define the reference portfolio here and choose the folder screenshots. I can see it saved here. In addition, I will also click on automatic naming so Enscape names the screenshots for me as well. This could save me a lot of time when exporting multiple screenshots to test certain views. We will now create a new scene and link this preset to it. The orthographic projection is an essential visual style for architecture and interior design. It helps designers reflect proportions clearly, not only in the standard plans, sections and elevations, but also in 3D perspectives. Such projections also look great in the white mode or the polystyrol mode, as the focus here is a lot on relative proportions. We can save these representation styles as presets and apply them to any view in our project. We don't have to work on each view individually. Let's name the view 2_side view. The naming of your views will also be an important factor for you if you are visualizing multiple views. Enscape will arrange the view list in the naming order. Therefore, a helpful tip is to add numbers to a view name, as I did, to get the desired order of your views in place, right when a scene is created. As you can see, the new preset is already linked to this view. Right away, let's click Create. To give a human aspect to any project or introduce the idea of scale in a project, it is perhaps a good idea to add in a few assets such as people, trees, street props, and more, to be able to relate your visuals to real-life experiences. You can do this quite easily with Enscape. Let's open the Enscape Asset Library. The Enscape Asset Library is an ever-increasing collection of Enscape-ready 3D models that can be placed inside your projects to communicate your design ideas with more experiential and contextual detail. You can create dynamic visuals really quick. It eliminates compatibility and conversion tasks by bringing everything directly inside your CAD project. You can search assets using the search bar, or you can select a category. You can further narrow your search inside a category by choosing tags. Enscape also offers adjustable assets. These are assets with either variants or assets that have options to customize their materials or colors. Let's click on the category People and choose a People asset to place it in our model. The asset will instantly appear and we can move it with the mouse. I can click on the surface I want to place the asset on, and I can place the same asset multiple times, until I choose another one. We can also edit our assets with the tools available on the Assets panel. We can move it, rotate in other axes, scale, as well as delete individual or multiple assets we have already placed. I will now select and place a few people assets around the visitor center. We can now click on Apply Changes to get a better feel of the composition and see how it looks. Maybe a few trees might add more character to the composition. Let's go to the vegetation category. We can choose the tag Tree to narrow down our search. Here are all the trees in our asset library. I will add a variant of this tree on each side of the visitor center. We can now click on Apply Changes. Looks quite good. Time to make some final edits to the scene. Let me turn on the save frame to see how our screenshot will be exported. Adjust the camera and sun positions. A good composition can only be defined by you, as the composer, designer, or the artist, as only you can define what visual arrangement can best reflect your design ideas. For me, I think this image reflects a great orthographic representation of the training project. So I will go ahead and save our second image. Click on Save Screenshot. And that is all you have to do, as we already defined a location and automatic naming for our screenshots. We just need to open the folder, and there it is, ready for us to review. Alright, and again, it's up to you to follow the steps you've just seen. Pause the video, take your time, and once you made it through all of the steps, let's continue with the next part of the lesson. As we discussed briefly that building elevations are typically visualized in the orthographic mode, I will tell you how you can get them with a click of a button in Enscape. Let's first go to SketchUp and hide the context blocks. Right-click on them and select Hide. Now go back to Enscape. Depending on the orientation of your project within SketchUp, you can click on the standard view shortcuts using the numpad keys to quickly visualize the 4 respective elevations of your project. 6 for right, 8 for a back, 4 for a left, and 2 for front. That's right, Enscape has it all covered for you. In order to add sky or other backgrounds to ortho images, you can apply alpha channel to them. Go to Output under Visual Settings and click on Apply Alpha Channel. Also, in the Image tab, set the chromatic aberration setting at the very bottom to 0%. chromatic aberration simulates a traditional monitor or an analog camera and displaces some blue and red pixels. This can cause a slightly blurry effect, which may not be what you want when using the alpha channel and insert your rendering into a different image. By reducing this value down to 0, we will get a sharper, crisper result. Save a screenshot. Now open up that image. You will see that the background is removed from the screenshot to allow you to add your own backgrounds. But you can export much more. Click this option here, and now you can also export visuals for the Object ID, Material ID, Depth channel, as well as Alpha channel. Pay attention to your depth range. This defines the ratio with which distance will be relative to brightness in the depth map. The value we choose here, for example 155 meters, will be black. Nothing beyond this point will appear on the depth channel image. Whatever you want to appear in your depth image should be within this range. Save a screenshot and open these images. So the base screenshot, the alpha mask, the depth channel, material ID, where each material is visualized in a different absolute color, and the object ID, each object is visualized in a different color as well. You can create your own unique representation styles with such visuals, and there is simply no end to possibilities with Enscape. The shortcut for top view is 5 on your numpad. Enscape really is an essential tool for your workflow. You can cut real-time sections and plans anytime and make various iterations to your design to study design aspects that are not easy to imagine only within the CAD environment. Next, we will differentiate between material maps and learn how to create realistic materials using Enscape. We will also get an overview on multi-placement of Enscape assets and an introduction towards setting up atmospheric compositions. We will be composing the 2 images you see on your screen. Let's work on an interior composition inside the visitor center. We will be creating a material for this display wall and will be adding layers to it to refine our final composition. Like any other composition we create during our training, I will right away create a new preset for this one. I will duplicate the current preset and name it O3 Material Wall. You can decide what settings might be important for you as we move on. I like to keep the exposure a bit high for interior images that do not have a lot of artificial light sources. I will now create our next view and name it O3 Material Wall as well. Our preset is already linked to our view. So, without any further changes, I will click Create. In order to work with materials, we need to first understand how a material is created inside your host CAD application, as the materials always need to be created or imported in SketchUp first in order to further work on them. Let me click on this plus icon on top of the Materials tab in the default tray inside SketchUp. This window will pop up. Let's name the material My Material Wall. Now I can either specify a solid color as the material, or I can use a texture image. Let me choose a texture image. The set of textures I will use can be found in our EXE drive, the one we've set up in previous lessons. In here, you can find the Viz Resources folder. Apart from the custom assets and Enscape materials, it also contains a textures folder. Here, you will find 3 image files at the very top, starting with 01. One ending on albedo, one on displ, DISPL, which stands for displacement, and one ending in rough, meaning roughness. Albedo controls the color of a surface. Displacement adds fine detail. It controls the height of your surface using a grayscale image. And roughness controls the reflectivity of a surface at any given point using a different grayscale image. Don't worry if all of this is a little confusing at first. We'll take a more detailed look at this in a second in the Enscape material editor. For now, I'll select this albedo brick texture. And there it is. Now we can adjust the scale and the opacity of the texture within SketchUp as well. Now that the material has been created, I can simply apply this material to any surface and it will show as an applied material in the Enscape material editor as well. I will apply it to this wall and go to the material editor to work on it further. When we open the Enscape material editor, we can simply click on the material we want to edit. However, you can also use the picker tool in SketchUp to highlight the material you are looking for. Let's pick the material on this wall. You can now see it highlighted here in the Enscape material editor as well. Now, let's understand a bit more about the different material maps. We can see the albedo texture is already assigned through SketchUp. The albedo controls the basic color of the surface you are visualizing. A material with only an albedo texture assigned to it has no depth, it's flat. SketchUp materials only hold albedo textures. That is why you don't see any realistic depth when you render them at first. SketchUp does not know the other 2 types of textures we will explore. Enscape attaches the additional information to any material you edit using the Enscape material editor. Let's stay in the color part of the Enscape material editor and explore the 2 settings under color and texture. These are only available when an image file is selected as texture. You can add a tint color to the albedo, which will add color to the color texture influence. And you have the option to fade the image with the image fade slider. This will remove influence of your image file in favor of the chosen color. Below this part, there is the height map area. It allows you to utilize the so-called bump, normal, or displacement maps in order to simulate bumps, wrinkles, and dents with respect to lighting conditions. Let's select displacement here and click this folder icon to assign our displacement map for this material. The displacement is defined in this image and is then read by Enscape. Bumps and normals add a more subtle surface deformation, great for things like wood or plaster. Displacement, in comparison to bumps and normals, pretends to actually deform the surface, which is great to be used for more pronounced surface irregularities, like cobblestones or rocks. Our brick texture is somewhere in between subtle and pronounced detail, so it pays off to try both settings with it. Once it's your turn to go through these steps, it's up to you to decide what results you are really looking for. You can clearly see how the material suddenly has realistic bumps and dents. You control the height setting with the amount slider and adjust it according to your requirements. In the Reflections section of the Enscape material editor, you can control how much of the environment will be reflected on your surface material. Before assigning a texture to control the value, I can change the overall value using the roughness slider. As the name suggests, the metallic slider gives your surface a metallic look. If you want to create a mirror, for example, this slider has to be set all the way to the right. The specular slider adjusts the Fresnel value. This value controls how specular a given surface is when viewed from an angle. You may compare this with looking at a water surface. From a low angle, it's reflective. From a steep angle, it's transparent. We can have finer control of the roughness value per location by assigning the roughness map ourselves as well. Let's go ahead and click the folder icon. Now, the roughness is defined by the image we provided. You can adjust the scale of the texture by clicking on the thumbnail image and adding your desired scale under Explicit Texture Transformation. You also have the option to define the rotation of your texture. Other forms of placement, like moving the texture or skewing it, can be performed directly in SketchUp using SketchUp's own toolset for this. We will now discuss the Enscape material library. Let's align SketchUp and Enscape side by side. Let's open up the Enscape material library. Here, we will find a diverse collection of pre-built materials ready to be applied to your project model. You can mark favorites, you can import them directly to SketchUp. Before I go ahead and do that though, I want to make sure to relink my default texture location. Why? Because by default, Enscape will save the textures that I will import from the material library in a local folder of mine, in a folder path that contains my Windows username. The texture paths we assign to our materials will be set and saved in your SketchUp file. If I ever want to move my texture files to a different computer or collaborate with others, I would have to relink all the height and roughness textures in all my materials manually, one by one. SketchUp only knows about the albedo color texture, so that's the only texture type that is being saved as an actual file in the SketchUp project file. The height and roughness textures will be lost if we only share the SketchUp project file. Instead, we can use the fact that we've set up a dedicated drive for this training, our EXE drive. First, I click the little settings button in the bottom left corner of the material library window. You see, the default path contains my name. If instead we select a location in our folder structure on our EXE drive before importing our first materials, all of them will be stored in a location that can be easily reproduced on any other machine, simply by mounting an EXE drive on that machine too. So here, instead, I choose EXE, Viz Resources, Downloaded Enscape Materials. Now that this is done, I can just choose a material and click Import Selection. You will notice a green check mark, indicating that the material has been successfully imported to SketchUp. We can find the imported material in the In Model tab inside SketchUp Materials. We also have the option to quick replace existing materials in our project with Enscape Materials, using the Enscape Material Editor. This is a fantastic workflow if you want to make an existing SketchUp project look amazing in Enscape in no time. Open the Enscape Material Editor. Once again, let's pick the material on this wall. When you hover over this material, you will see 3 dots on the right. I will click the 3 dots and go to the option Replace with Enscape Material. Once I click here, this will take us back to the Enscape Material library, but it functions slightly different here. When you click on a material, you will be able to preview it in the Enscape visualization instantly. And you can preview a whole bunch of materials until you find the right one. Let's try a few. You will be amazed by the speed and the visual understanding the preview function projects for you. You can quickly get an overview of certain material choices you have conceptualized for your surfaces. Once you find the best material for your surface, simply go to the bottom right and click Replace. This will replace your material with a new selection. I will just click Close and go with our created material. Materials are one of the most important aspects of a great composition. They bring your visuals close to a conceptual, imagined, or a realistic spatial experience. With the right material, you can share your vision and understand others, which is crucial for a successful project. So friends, time for our next screenshot. Let's make some changes to the output. If you want to print a screenshot, then perhaps Ultra HD or a higher resolution would be recommended. You can set up a custom resolution up to 8192 x 8192 pixels. I will select Ultra HD. Now that the output is ready, let's go back to our view. I will make some final changes to my view. Adjust the camera a bit and change the sun position. When composing an image, it is important to identify details that are important for you. Work on them to narrate your ideas through these compositions. I will now save the view and save a screenshot as well. And there it is! Our screenshot has been saved in our defined reference portfolio folder. And once again, it's on you to perform the steps you see on the screen. Pause the video, and once you're finished, let's continue with the fourth part of the third lesson. Depending on the level of refinement in your materials, you can create stunning compositions of your project in all design phases. Let's develop an exterior view, but with a bit more detail using materials and assets. As you see, the model lacks some very necessary details, such as the grass and water materials. We also don't see natural elements such as trees or other vegetation. Let's search for a view where we can see the visitor center from far, but with a lot more context in the forefront. Maybe from this side of the water body, looking towards the building. Let's first create a new preset and name it 04 Exterior. We will come back to the preset later to work on it further. I will now create my next view and name it 04 Exterior as well. In this part of the lesson, we will develop those missing details that add to the environment and atmosphere of our image composition. We can also start considering placement of important elements in foreground and background to create a sense of depth. I will go for an evening scene this time, where the sun is going down and we have some really soft and longer shadows. This looks good for now. I will click Create. We will now use the Multi-Placement Asset tool to add a few trees and shrubs to the model. We can do this by opening up the Enscape asset library. By default, the Single Placement tool is active. I will click on the Multi-Placement tool here. I will type in tree in the search bar, and Enscape will search all trees in the asset library. I can select multiple trees now by adding a tick to each and bring them down into my multi-placement asset list. I can deselect them from that list later if I don't want any of those selected assets to be included anymore. The first option to mark areas for multi-placement is the rectangular area selection. The chosen assets will be filled in that marked rectangle. The second option is the circular area selection. I will, however, use the third option, bucket area selection. The bucket picks up complete surfaces as areas to be populated with the selected assets. I can define surfaces as separate or one with the CAD environment. Now that the assets are populated on our surface, we can change the density through the slider to a realistic amount. And at any point, we can preview the placement on the selected area or regenerate the placement. I can confirm the placement for different surfaces before we apply the final changes. It really depends on your CAD model, how these surfaces are identified. I will now add some shrubs to the small surface. Adding variation to see what looks good and playing with the density could really give us more control to bring out that natural feel in the composition. I will quickly add to the second, smaller area as well and confirm placement. Let's zoom out a bit. Now I can apply changes to all surfaces we worked on. There! Did you notice how quickly Enscape helped you add so much detail to your model? Every asset we add in Enscape is also being added inside the SketchUp model. You can copy, move, rotate and delete these assets inside SketchUp as well. That means you have more time to focus on your project. Let Enscape worry about those small details that could really give you an edge over your visualizations in terms of detail and character. Let's go back to our view. Now that we have some contextual detail to our composition, we will go into material types. For now, we have the grass and water textures from SketchUp as discussed before, just as albedos. Apart from changing the material texture maps, we can also apply material types directly to our textures. Open the Enscape material editor. Pick the grass material in SketchUp through the picker tool. There are a few predefined material types in Enscape that you can choose from. Let's click on grass for this material. The moment you specify a material type, Enscape gives it that realistic detail and the options to edit those details. You can change the height of the grass blades, you can bring variation to them and you can do a lot more. Let's change the type back to generic for now. Now let's talk about keywords that Enscape identifies automatically in terms of the material types. The texture for grass here is named green inside SketchUp. Green is not a keyword for Enscape. If we, however, create a new material or choose a material that has the keyword grass in its name, for example, this one, vegetation grass, Enscape will instantly identify the material type as grass because of its keywords. That's where keywords can be really helpful in the naming of your materials. You save a lot of time. The same applies to water. We can either change the type in the material editor or choose a material with a keyword water in its name. There are options to edit the color, wind, wave and detail settings. A lower wave height could be very useful for specific compositions where you want to see slightly more clear reflections on the water. With water, it's always suggested to apply the material on both sides of the surface in SketchUp. Now you can also see the tiles under the water. Visuals with the right materials can serve as mediators for the senses and can bring you inside the visual itself. Looks super amazing in just a few clicks. What do you think? Let's go back to our view and work on the atmosphere of our composition using visual settings. Adjust the exposure to reflect the light environment a bit before sunset. The field of view can be compared to a camera lens. Change it a bit and you can feel how a slight increase has given more depth to the distance between the man on the bike and the visitor center in the back. Let's go to the Atmosphere tab. Here we can adjust the fog, the illumination and the wind settings. I will increase the intensity of fog just enough that we can see it a bit in the back, just between the trees and the contextual blocks in the far end. And I will adjust the height of the fog to partially hide those blocks to give more focus to the forefront. You have to understand how the eye reads an image and what makes parts of the composition more important than others. Let's play with these settings a bit to give more character to our image. Enscape gives you remarkable control over your compositions. Alright, let's now edit our view to finalize our composition. I will turn the save frame on and make some final changes to the camera and the sun positions. Now the visual has a lot to offer in terms of mood, character and experience. As you can see, it's all about how you compose an image and what details are present in it. I will save the changes now. And save our next screenshot. There you go. With each visualization, you will learn something new Enscape has to offer. You really don't have to differentiate visualization from your design workflow. With Enscape, it's now part of the workflow. With this being said, follow the plan you already know by now. Pause the video, follow the steps you see on screen, and once you're ready, unpause the video and continue the learning path. We learned a lot about image creation for exterior and interior during the day, but let's go one step ahead and create a night shot. That's right, it is included with the basic training. Which means you don't need to be an advanced user to create night shots with Enscape. You will notice some more details added to the training model. A bit more landscape, some more street props, vehicles and, of course, light assets to use for artificial lighting for our night shot. We have the street lamps, the lamps for the water body, uplights for the steps, and downlights under the pavilion. Let's create our new preset and name it 05 Night. We will make sure that our new preset is selected. I will now create our next view. We will open View Management, create a new view, and name it 05 Night as well. Let's set up the view a bit and try to include an overall picture of the site, as we will place artificial lights all around it. Since it is a night shot we will be working on, let's change the time of day to night. You will notice that some artificial lights have already been added to the visitor center. In case you don't see any lights at nighttime, or it seems nothing is visible, go to the main tab under Visual Settings and enable the Auto Exposure by clicking this checkmark here. Let's change the time of day so it's not too dark. This is good. Let's click Create. These light assets you see in the model are placed as SketchUp components. This means if we add an Enscape light object to one of the components, all other components for that asset will have that light added to them as well. For this exercise, I will synchronize views and align both SketchUp and Enscape side by side. Enscape lights can be found under Enscape objects. This can be found only on the SketchUp side of Enscape as a plus icon in the Enscape toolbar. Clicking on it will show us all the objects available, including 5 different Enscape lights. Let's add an Enscape light object to this street lamp component. I will select Line Light from the Enscape Objects window. The first placement click is the surface where you want to place the light. The second placement click is the offset from that surface. These 2 clicks will place your light in the model. Then there are these purple and red trigger points to edit the light. We will use this one on the right to rotate the light horizontally, and we will use this one on top to rotate the light vertically. The red middle point can be used to move the light to the center of the street lamp, and the red ends to adjust the length of the light for each end. We can also adjust the length from the slider, as the maximum length is visible here. If we want, we can also move the light using the Move tool in SketchUp as well. Once again, I would like to remind you that the Enscape light source object is only visible in SketchUp and can only be edited there. Let's increase the intensity of the light to see what works best for our model. There! You can see all the lamp components have that light placed in them, and we have lit up our scene real quick. Let's go to visual settings now. Do you notice this lens flare here? This and a lot of other small visual changes can be easily adjusted under the Image tab. Under Effects, you will see the slider for the lens flare. We control its visibility here and bring it down if we don't want to see this effect. Did you also notice this diffusion of light spreading around the light source? This can be controlled by the bloom slider. I can adjust it to my visual needs quite easily with this slider. Another way to control artificial light settings is under the Atmosphere tab. Here, under Illumination, you will find the artificial light brightness. This adjusts the overall brightness of these lights. Since we could use line light for the water body lamps as well, I will simply copy it in SketchUp and place it directly inside this second component. Look at that! Adding lights is not different from any other function. Let's try another light type for the steps. We will place a sphere light this time. Just like the line light, the first click is the surface. And the second click is the offset from it. I can adjust the radius of the light source, and I will keep it low and limited to the asset boundary while playing with the luminous intensity. This seems to work great here. Maybe a slight increase in exposure would bring out that detail we are looking for. Awesome! We will now edit our view and finalize our composition. Let's turn on the save frame. I will tweak the sun settings in Enscape to find the right time for the night scene. I would like to stay at a boundary between evening and night, so my sky is not fully dark. This enables me to have some visibility over my model in areas where no light is projected at all. Let's now adjust our camera. Just like with any other composition, night shots also need deliberate attention towards what a composition reflects. Is it focusing on a specific part of the project, the build, the context, or the overall picture? I would prefer an overall picture, but more focused towards the visitor center. This view is quite close to how I imagine this composition to be. I will save this view and create our next screenshot. There we go. Our first night shot is ready for us to review. With compositions where a night scene is reflected, many small adjustments play a very big role. However, it's not always what can be achieved, rather what needs to be narrated. Great! With this, once again, pause the video and go over the steps you just saw and that you see depicted on the screen. Once you're done and have a nice new night rendering, you can unpause the video and we'll continue with the last part for lesson 3. This is a nice time to celebrate the progress we made so far by learning about batch rendering. Batch rendering allows us to render out all of our scenes, or a selection of favorites, in one simple step. This way, we'll get to create a copy of all the images we produced throughout this training course so far, and a few added ones as well. You can find the batch rendering button right next to the screenshot button. Clicking it will open the batch rendering interface. This batch rendering window will show a list of all of the scenes in your SketchUp project, an overview which of them contain visual settings presets or sun settings, and the option to select individual scenes using checkboxes that appear when you hover your mouse over the area left of a scene name. To select all scenes in one go, you can click the checkbox at the very top. Next to this checkbox, by the way, is a tiny down arrow. This little button hides the option to select only the favorite scenes to be exported as renderings. Remember, there was the star icon you could enable or disable when creating or editing a scene through the Enscape View Management. Alternatively, however, we can also click the down arrow next to the Render Images button. And we'll find that, on top, we can automate the creation of mono or stereo panoramas from here too. So now you know how to select views we want to turn into beautiful renderings. All that's left to do is to click the Render Images button. You can make easy comparisons through your batch exports for this lesson. Not only do they represent the development of a design in terms of detail, they also represent the visualization needs for each of these workflow phases. Now, all your images are saved in your specified folder. One of the most asked questions from our users is about the level of detail required to create mind-blowing renders with Enscape. To answer that question, you can create mind-blowing renders with Enscape at any level of detail in your project. It really depends on your vision and how you want to represent it. For each screenshot we have created so far, the key was not really the detail, but what to reflect and how to best compose it. And once again, before we continue in lesson 4, it is up to you to go through the steps you see on screen, pause the video, and once you're done, I'll see you in lesson 4. Let's recap what we've learned in lesson 3. Now you can compose images and apply individual presets to them, create amazing materials and enrich your images with Enscape assets, create night shots using artificial lights, and customize your outputs. And you can export everything in one go using the batch render button. See you in the next lesson. Welcome to lesson 4 of the Enscape Basic Training. In this lesson, you will learn how to create stunning 360-degree panoramas using Enscape, how to upload them to the Enscape cloud, and how to share them instantly using a link or QR code. You will also learn to create a panorama gallery to guide your viewers on a predefined path through your design on a platform of their choice. Let's begin by understanding what panoramas are and the difference between mono and stereo panoramas. So, what exactly is a 360-degree panorama image to begin with? A panorama, as created with Enscape, is a spherical 360-degree image taken from one point in space, consisting of multiple images automatically being stitched together. As opposed to a regular still image, not only objects directly in front of you on the screen will be visible, but instead the entire surrounding scene you see on the bottom right. Offering a much broader picture and engaging the viewer towards a coherent understanding of the design, which can sometimes be hard by just looking at a still image. You can create two types of panoramas using Enscape: mono panoramas and stereo panoramas. Mono panoramas are the default type and will run just fine on any modern device that runs a Chrome or Firefox browser. Stereo panoramas, on the other hand, will take twice as long to be rendered, but if used with a mobile VR device, such as a Google Cardboard, they will provide a sense of depth and scale to the viewer. Only mono panoramas, however, can be used for galleries. Galleries are guided walkthroughs consisting of multiple 360-degree panoramas under one web link. These panoramas contain markers. The viewer can click to navigate between various panoramas on multiple locations inside the project model. Therefore, we will be focusing on mono panoramas for this lesson. For this part of the lesson, we will learn to create panoramas, upload panoramas, share them, and replace an existing panorama with a new one. We have predefined a few panorama locations as named views in the Enscape view management. Let's go to View Management and access the first view. When creating a 360-degree surround picture, every environmental detail in the surrounding should be considered, as every surrounding detail will be captured. Therefore, the position, or that single point in space, can be a very important aspect for design representation. Before we create the panorama, let's head over to Visual Settings and check out the options for the panorama output quality. Here, under Panorama, we have 3 output settings. First, we have Low. It exports the panorama at a set resolution of 2048 x 4096 pixels. Then we have Normal. This is the default or the standard setting, which generally produces great results at a high speed, generating the output at a set resolution of 4096 x 8192 pixels. And finally, we have High. It provides the highest resolution, but takes the longest time. The panorama is exported at a set resolution of 8192 x 16384 pixels. I will set High for our first panorama. Please note that exporting on high resolution might cause crashes when opening the resulting panorama on some iOS devices. Now, creating a mono panorama itself is as simple as clicking this button at the top. And done. Now, all we have to do is to wait until it's finished rendering. As with screenshots, this process is quite similar. This is the benefit of real-time rendering, in comparison to traditional rendering approaches, that you don't have to wait long to export visuals of any sort. It is a very quick process. Let's now review our created panorama. We'll head over to SketchUp and, in the Enscape toolbar, click the Upload Management button. This will open the Enscape account window with the Upload Management tab already selected. This tab displays all of my panoramas organized under their relevant project names. You can pan around the panorama thumbnail using the small black arrows appearing as you hover over the right and left of the thumbnail image. If you hover to the center of the thumbnail, you will see a location pin, offering you the option to click on it to be able to fly to the panorama image visible in this thumbnail, inside the Enscape viewport. We could save the panorama out as an offline file, and this is what it would look like. However, for this training, I would click this cloud and arrow icon instead. If we're logged into our Enscape account, this will begin uploading the new panorama to the Enscape cloud. If you're a trial user, your uploads will not be connected to any particular account. You can still share them as described in the following, but they will be removed 2 weeks after the upload. If you have an Enscape license, ideally make sure to create an account and log in before uploading your panoramas. You can do that by clicking the rightmost icon in the Enscape toolbar, the Account button. In the following window, click Sign In to open your browser on the Enscape Customer Portal login page. If you don't have an account yet, sign up here. If you have one already, you can use this interface to connect it to Enscape. The Customer Portal will later allow us to manage our panoramas and even create full panorama tours. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. By having uploaded our panorama to the Enscape cloud, we unlock a range of new options. For one, we can see the option to remove the panorama from the cloud and the cloud icon on top right, confirming it is successfully uploaded. And we can see these 3 dots here as well. Now, we can immediately review the panorama in Chrome or in Firefox. If I simply click the 3 dots icon on the panorama thumbnail and select Open in Web Browser. This will open the panorama rendering as a web page in my web browser. It will allow you to pan the 360-degree image around holding the left mouse button. This gives me a better, more truthful experience compared to the stretched out offline image. Using the menu behind these 3 buttons also gives us access to copy the link to this panorama directly to our clipboard, or copy, save, or directly scan a QR code. This QR code is a very useful feature. It serves as another way to share the link to our panorama. This way, it's particularly useful with mobile devices. Anyone can just scan the QR code on their mobile device and it will simply open, taking the movement of your phone as input to look around in your scene. You can stick these QR codes on your plans, sections, or other drawings, allowing clients and other project members to experience important locations in your design during any phase of the project. As you can see, I have already created panoramas for the remaining scenes and uploaded them to the cloud. Now, I can use the web link or the QR code to open or share the panoramas whenever and wherever I need to. All it takes is just a click inside Enscape. Let me now show you how to replace a given panorama in your uploads. Before I replace a panorama I already uploaded or am using it in a gallery or a tour, I want to make a distinctive change to our scene. Let's say change the material on the Enscape building to simulate the real-life circumstance of the design progress. So I will pick the building exterior and quick replace it with a different Enscape material. I have a clearly different look now, and I want to make sure that the panoramas I previously shared with someone, used for an online gallery or tour, or simply uploaded to the Enscape cloud, are replaced or updated by this new look. I have to recreate those panoramas in Enscape, and I can then replace the already uploaded ones with these newly created ones. I will now recreate a panorama for the first scene here. Once it's finished, let's return to the SketchUp interface and open the Uploads Management again. Now that we have one panorama that's not uploaded to the Enscape cloud yet, that we want to replace an existing one with, we can finally check out this last button, the Replace Uploaded Panorama in Cloud button. It's only available for panoramas that haven't been uploaded yet. Clicking it will open an overview of the already uploaded panoramas for this project. Select the matching one to replace with a new one and click Next. Lastly, the interface will show you a comparison between the two panoramas so you can verify you're making the right changes. Click Replace to confirm the changes. This green checkmark indicates that the panorama has been successfully replaced in the cloud with this one. It is visible in the comparison images as well, as both look the same now. And once again, it's up to you to walk through these steps that we've just described. Pause the video, check if you have everything you need to create panoramas, and if you have any questions, just go back a couple of seconds or minutes and rewatch what we've shown you right now. We will now have a look at how to create a panorama gallery, how to rearrange panoramas in a gallery, how to share a panorama gallery, and how to manage your uploads in your Enscape account. To create a panorama tour, we need to leave our SketchUp Enscape environment and enter our Enscape customer account through the Enscape website. I have the option to go to my Enscape account through this link here, go to Uploads. Or I can open this page, enscape3d.com, in my web browser and click Sign In at the top right. Once I fill in my credentials and have successfully logged in, my Enscape account overview page by default launches with an overview of my panoramas, stored in folders named after individual project files, across all the design applications I may use Enscape with. With each panorama, you can open the options with these three dots and click Share Options. You can copy this link, you can generate a new one for the same image, and you can type in an email you want the link to be emailed to. We can also rename our images. I will rename it O1 Exterior and sort it name-wise. Other options include moving the panorama to another folder or to delete the panorama from the cloud. Let's talk about the panorama gallery now. I will click this option here, Create Mono Panorama Gallery. We might be asked to select a project folder and, subsequently, to select at least 2 mono panoramas from our selection to create the gallery from. I will select all the panoramas available to me here in the training model project. Next, we will click Start Editing. A new window will open and will now display the first of the selected panoramas. You can immediately left-click anywhere in the picture and drag the mouse to move the camera around. Note that this is a static image, so we can't change the daytime or move around in the scene. This is the panorama gallery or tour editing mode. At the bottom, you'll find a selection of the panoramas in this gallery. Additionally to clicking Previous and Next on the left and right edge of the screen, you can use this list to switch between the various panoramas in your gallery. Or even change their order of appearance by grabbing them by this icon in the top left corner and dragging them to the desired location. You can also exclude individual panos by clicking the X in the top right corner. If you can't see the selection, you should at least see this orange bar that enables you to hide or unhide the selection interface. Let's check out the 3 buttons we can find in the top left corner of the screen. The plus button is there for you to add additional panoramas to the gallery. We will add the one we deleted previously. The Save or Save As button will let you save the changes you've made or create a separate copy of the tour. The first button here is the Mode Selection button. If you click this, a prompt will appear asking you to choose a mode between Gallery and Tour. Click Confirm for Gallery mode. The Gallery mode is more basic and resembles the interface we're facing right now. You can go left or right in the gallery with no other spatial implications. The second is the tour mode. When switching from gallery to tour mode, you will be asked if you only want to show the 2 closest waypoints at a time or all of them. This relates to your overall number of panoramas in the tour. Let's click Show All Waypoints and confirm. Now you'll see a few circles indicating the location of the other panoramas in the scene. Click one of them to see how you're being teleported to that panorama location. If we select the tour, Enscape will add an overlay displaying circles over your panorama, indicating the direction in which each panorama was rendered in the project. This means that you can provide your viewers with a sense of the complete model, letting them navigate the scene by clicking in the direction they would like to go. Let's click Save to save our gallery for now. You will be asked to give your gallery a name and specify a folder in your Enscape account uploads. Once I define this, I can click Save, and I can now see the created gallery in my uploads. I can share it the same way I share any other panorama, by copying a link or through an email. In the View mode, the viewer does not have the edit options. You can preview your gallery in View mode as well to be sure what your viewers will experience in the gallery you created using Enscape. And for the last time in lesson 4, it's up to you to pause the video and go through the steps you see on the screen. This time we want you to create 4 new views with unique visual styles, replace existing panoramas with these new panoramas, and create a panorama gallery. After finishing this, now, after lesson 4, you can create and upload panoramas, you can share your panoramas through QR code and web links, and you can create, share, and manage a panorama gallery. Great! Good job! See you in lesson 5. Hey! Welcome to lesson 5 of the Enscape Basic Training. In this lesson, we will have a look at how we can create EXE and web-based standalone experiences to be able to share your project with anyone and everyone. We will also cover how to customize the Enscape loading screen for your Enscape viewport, as well as for any standalones you share externally. If you're currently a trial user, you cannot export any standalone files, and you can also not customize your Enscape window. So in your case, just watch the lesson and participate in the practical part after you've obtained a license. Let's begin by creating executable standalone files. Standalones allow viewers to fully walk around the model and freely explore it at their own pace. They will not be able to make any changes to the model. The standalones serve as free viewers for the complete project. Alright, let's start with EXE standalones. So we can find this EXE file button here in the Enscape window. The icon is displayed as EXE itself. This is going to allow you to create a standalone file. A standalone EXE file is a file that you can share with your clients via email, a Dropbox link, or a Google Drive link, or any other file sharing service you prefer. From there, the client is going to download this file, and after opening, Enscape is going to launch, allowing them to navigate around the model, change the time of day, and explore other settings. Furthermore, they don't need to install SketchUp or Enscape on their machine to view the standalone file. It completely works on its own. Let's first go to the View Management tab here. If we want to carry these views in our view list over to the EXE file, we have to favorite those views to be able to include them. Let's edit these views and bring them to our favorites list by clicking the star icon on the right of the scene name in the edit mode. All views under favorites are now going to transfer over to the EXE file we will create. So let me pick a nice location that I want to start with, or I can also click on one of my named views as starting point for the EXE file. Here we go. Alright, now I will click the EXE standalone file button. A window will pop up. Now I can type in a name, specify a location, and click Save. To run this EXE file, the person receiving it will need a system that meets our system requirements. They will not need an Enscape license to run this, as this is just a viewer. There is a 2 GB file size limit that is put in place by Windows for EXE files. This means that it's impossible for you to create EXE files totaling over 2 GB file size, but there's a lot of room before getting there. It should also be noted that these EXE files are not available on a Mac. They are Windows specific only. Also, opening an EXE file like this on a new computer for the first time may cause Windows to prompt a warning message, simply because this is an executable file from an unknown source. In such a case, to run the file, the user will need to open up more info and tell Windows to run the file anyway. If you need to create standalone executable files that don't prompt this warning message on other computers, there are ways to sign them using Windows digital signature functionality. You can Google how to sign an EXE file and how to set up a proper signature. So, the EXE file should show up with an Enscape icon in the location we've saved it in, and we can open it by simply double-clicking it. Later, we will learn how to change the file appearance by using a custom icon instead. The Enscape loading screen is going to pop up. As mentioned before, we will also learn to customize this loading screen in this lesson. Once the project has opened, it will show us exactly what was inside the Enscape model at the time we created the EXE file. This is the view I selected the file to open with. Similar to navigation inside Enscape, we can navigate inside the standalone using the same keys, which we can also see on the screen. We can control the time of day. We can activate the minimap. On the left-hand side in the Settings tab, here we have Visual Settings, Input Options. Under Devices, we can even enable virtual reality as well if our machine is capable of running Enscape in VR. And we have some other settings that can be controlled under the Performance tab as well. Now, on the far right-hand side of the screen, this is where we have the different views we marked as favorites. So, if I click on any of those views, I'll be teleported to those individual views that I set up before exporting the EXE file. Please note that layers, tags, and hidden geometry within SketchUp scenes are not translated to standalones. The visibility settings that were active when exporting the file can't ever be changed in the resulting file. We can change our perspective modes though. And the walk and fly modes as well. The EXE standalones are a great way to share your projects with anyone. This not only gives a wholesome experience to the clients, It gives them an edge over understanding different aspects of the project they haven't been able to be part of before. Such collaboration triggers an atmosphere of inclusion for all involved in the design process. Once again, it's your turn to pause the video and create and run your own standalone EXE file. Take your time and restart the video once you feel comfortable with this feature. In the next part of the lesson, we will explore customizing the title text and icon, as well as the loading screen for our Enscape experience, and add a custom watermark on top. Let's now talk about how to customize our Enscape loading screen. I will open this little gear icon in the top right of the Enscape window, the Enscape window settings. The first tab here covers customization. This is where you can change the loading screen and customize the Enscape window. I can change the icon representing the standalone file after export here, and this will also change the icon that's shown on the top left-hand corner of my Enscape screen. So I will change that by selecting an icon file. I can also change the title of my screen by typing it in the window title field. For the loading screen, I could replace it with whatever image I would like to be displayed here. So I will pick this one here. To add a watermark, I can simply select an image and define the placement for the watermark. Do you see these round placement markers? I can click on one of these to select which location works best for me to place the watermark. I will restart Enscape now to see how my loading screen would look like after these changes. So there's the new icon, the window title, the new loading screen, as well as the watermark. So now, wherever we move, that watermark will stay with us. This will stay in place not only for our everyday Enscape viewport and screenshots, but will also transfer over to our standalones. Let me save another EXE file and see how it looks in the standalone environment. Alright, here is the new EXE file. There, simply perfect. Now I can share it with others with my watermark on it. And again, it's your turn. This time, before exporting the standalone file, we want you to customize its loading screen, watermark, and title text. Then, after exporting the standalone file, first stay in Enscape and save another screenshot. You will notice the watermark will be included in your screenshot as well. Then, review the standalone file in all its customized beauty. Once you're done, let's continue by learning about web standalones. When covering web standalones, we'll discuss how to create and share them and how to replace an existing web standalone with a new one. Next is our web standalone feature. It is very comparable to the EXE standalone in terms of usability. However, the web standalone removes the requirement for high-end graphics cards, as the web standalone exports are rendered directly in the browser. This is simply a link instead of a file that you can email to your clients. Much like the EXE file, there is no license required for this as well. Let's take a look at how to create this. To get to the Web Standalone, I will click the drop-down button here and go to Web Standalone. From there, it's going to start generating that Web Standalone for me. Once it's done, it should pull up with the web browser. Here we go. Here's the web loading screen. And here is our Web Standalone. The quality is going to look a little bit different from the EXE file. The EXE file, as you see on the left, will take the full high-quality version of what was inside the Enscape window. The Web Standalone, as we see on the right, is going to render using WebGL technology. This will reduce the quality a bit. It is comparable to draft quality mode in Enscape. The navigation will be a little different as well. We can see down here, we can only navigate with the arrow keys. I can still change the time of day like before. I can activate the minimap. We also have the ability to switch between the perspective modes and the walk and fly modes. We have the watermark placed inside the Web Standalone as well. Some settings on the far left hand are present in the Web Standalone. However, unlike the EXE standalone, named views are not transferred to a Web Standalone. Once our standalone is ready, we can go back to our Uploads Management tab in the Enscape toolbar. Right next to Panoramas, you will see the Web Standalone tab. Here, I can see a list of all the Web Standalones for the selected project. If I hover on the right side of a standalone, I can see the Copy Link option. I can simply click it and the link will be copied to my clipboard. Now, I can either paste it directly in a web browser and share it however I want to, or I can also click on this link at the bottom of the window. Go to Uploads. This will take me to my Enscape account in my browser. Just like any panorama or gallery, I have the same share options for my standalones as well. I can copy the link, generate a new one, or simply type an email I want to send the link to. Furthermore, I can rename, move, or delete my standalones from my account. If I need to make a change to that Web Standalone, all I have to do is simply regenerate the Web Standalone with the new changes. So I will do that now. I can now open my standalones through the Enscape toolbar in SketchUp, and I can see the new standalone here. And the third option as well, that is to replace an existing Web Standalone with this one. Once I click this icon, I will be asked to pick the standalone I want to replace. Once selected, I can click Next. Now I have an overview showing the new standalone and the one that will be replaced. Once I click Replace and confirm replacement, a green checkmark will indicate a successful replacement of the existing standalone with the new one. Now, I don't have to worry about the link I have already shared for the standalone, as I have replaced the standalone with all the latest changes made to my project. Web standalones specifically eliminate the need for powerful hardware and high-end graphics cards. All you need is a web browser. Standalones do an amazing job to give you the ease to share your projects without technical understanding. This means all project members can visualize the project without any limitations and collaborate in ways that are made simple with Enscape. To finish lesson 5, again, pause the video and create a web standalone yourself. Afterwards, make some changes and update your existing web standalone with a new one. Now that we have finished lesson 5, you can create and customize your own EXE and Web standalones and share and manage them so they'll always stay relevant and up to date. Now that's done, let's continue with lesson 6. Welcome to the Enscape Basic Training Lesson 6. In this lesson, we will go through the essential basics of the Enscape video editor while learning about a few typical camera movements used in design visualizations. We will learn how to use keyframes, export videos, combine video clips, and save camera paths. Let's check out in detail what we'll learn in this first part of the lesson. The first part will cover typical types of camera movement as related to Enscape rendered videos. Let's hop right in. Creating videos with Enscape can be compared directly to shooting videos with a real camera. There are typical movements that are commonly used by architectural, interior, and other design videographers. For example, a pan movement is considered a shot where the camera is fixed at a single point and pans around that point horizontally. A tilt shot is similar, however it pans or tilts around that fixed point vertically. This helps capture the detailed characteristics of elements that need to be emphasized around that fixed point you start with. Then there is the truck shot. This is a very commonly used method of video representation in visualizations. This is when the camera is facing the same direction and moves left or right. It is similar to a dolly shot, where the camera moves forward or backward. Or a pedestal shot, where the camera moves up or down. Then there is the circular dolly shot, where the camera is facing a subject, such as a building, and it orbits around it from one point to the other. This is commonly used to emphasize the different angles of a subject, while the background is continuously moving as well. And then there is the time-lapse, which is typically shot from a fixed position, but can be accompanied by slow movements as well. However, the key idea is to capture change or movement inside a fixed view over a long period of time. In architectural videography, this method is commonly used to capture the movement of sun around a building, and subsequently, the transformation of light and shadows during the capture time frame. All these videos you see are created using Enscape. We will learn to apply some of these typical camera movements while we learn to create videos in this lesson. Let's review what we'll learn in the next part of this lesson. We will create our first simple video. Doing this, we'll explore how to use keyframes to edit and fine-tune your camera path, how to export your final piece of art as a video file, and how to save camera paths to re-render the same video later or to continue working on them at a later time. Let's open up Enscape and explore the training model to find a view for our video. We will be creating a simple pan, which means we need to find a fixed position to pan around horizontally. This can be compared to the look around function in Enscape using the left mouse button. You are located at a fixed position and you can move your camera left or right. Maybe here is a good starting view. I can open the video editor from this icon or by pressing V on my keyboard. We can now see a timeline and some other functions. To create any video, I need to add at least 2 keyframes. the start and the end. When I click this plus icon on the right or press K, Enscape will add the first keyframe. This will be our starting view for the video. So let's define the second or the end view for our pan from that same position we are at right now, but rotating towards right or left. I will rotate to the right just enough so I can see the complete visitor center in my pan shot. I will add the second keyframe here. Now I can click on each of my keyframes on the timeline to view them. Now if I press the Escape key once, I will exit the currently selected keyframe. Once I exit my keyframes, I will be able to view my video path physically inside the Enscape viewport. There, our path in this case is a single point with two views, defined by the two cameras at that fixed point. Alternatively, you can also click the keyframes directly on the path marked by a camera. When I click on the camera, it will take me to that keyframe. Once I have two keyframes, I can define the total duration of the video. I will go to the total duration setting here and change it to 10 seconds. Now, when I click on the preview button or simply press P on my keyboard, I can see a preview of my 10-second pan video. I can also edit my existing keyframes by clicking on them and clicking the update icon in the keyframe settings. Let me update the second keyframe as well. And now, let's preview it again. Nice! So our first video is ready. I will now click Export on the bottom right of this timeline. Here, we can define the resolution, the compression quality, and the frames per second. Once I click Export, I can define a name, location for my export, and click Save. While the video is exporting, I can preview the video behind the export status. By default, Enscape saves our video in MP4 format. At any point, if I, for some reason, decide to cancel my export, Enscape still saves part of the video that was rendered till that moment when I hit cancel. Did you see how quick that was? Now, we also have the option to save our video paths as XML files that can be loaded later if needed. For this, we can click on the three bars here and click Save Path to File. There can only be one active video path in Enscape at a time. Therefore, if we save these paths as XML backups, we could always reload them again later. Let's create a new video path. We will be prompted to delete the previous one. I will click Yes, as I have already saved the previous path as an XML file on my machine. This time, I will create a path with a bit more movement. I will create a truck shot. I will be facing this wall inside the visitor center while I move from left to right. This should be quite easy. I can quickly achieve it using the move keys inside Enscape. So here is my first keyframe, for example. Now I will move towards the right. And here is my second keyframe. Let's view our video path. Let's change the total duration to 10 seconds again and preview our shot. Looks great! If I want to add more keyframes to this path, I can do it directly on my timeline, or I can simply click on the path to add a new keyframe. I can update my path by updating my keyframe. We can also turn on grid lines when defining keyframes to create better compositions if we are looking for certain photographic representations, for example. I will now click Update. When I view my video path now, I can see how smartly Enscape morphs each keyframe into a single path for a smooth movement. I also have the option to set individual timestamps for each keyframe if I want to define the placement of each keyframe on the timeline myself. I can delete excessive or unwanted keyframes by selecting the delete icon in each keyframe setting. Now I have my original truck shot in place. Super cool, right? I will go ahead and click Export now. We will save the video path and click New Video Path. Alright, just like in the past lessons too, now it's your task to get creative. Pause the video and work through the steps you see on screen, just like we've covered them in the past few minutes. Use just 2 keyframes to create your own little pan or truck movement. Then save the camera path and export the video as a video file. Once you're done with the exercise, unpause the video and let's continue with the next part of the lesson. In this next part, we will explore how to employ time-lapse effects to create unique videos. When talking about unique styles, we can't miss the time-lapse. It's quite easy with Enscape. Let me first find a nice view where I could capture the changing time of day. Maybe a view like this, where I not only see the changing shadows cast by the visitor center, but also the changing sky and clouds as well. I would want to check my visual settings and adjust the cloud settings a bit under the Sky tab to get that image I have in mind applied to my final results. Good, so I will now simply add 2 keyframes at the same position. First keyframe and second keyframe. Now I will select the first keyframe and click on the time of day. I will set this to 7 AM for the first keyframe and click Update. "4 PM for the second keyframe and Update. We can change the total duration to 5 seconds. Let's preview it now. Check that out. With a few clicks, Enscape really did all the work for you. Now, before I export, I would like to make it really unique. So I not only want a time-lapse, I also want to add some camera movement to bring more focus to the visitor center. and be a bit more creative with how I want to represent it. Remember that typical dolly shot we saw at the beginning of this lesson, where the camera physically moves towards or away from the subject you are shooting. I will add it to the mix. I will keep my first keyframe as it is, but I will edit my second keyframe and move forward, do a dolly movement and come closer to the visitor center. Keep in mind we still have different daytime settings for both keyframes, meaning that the time-lapse is still in place. Do you see the video path now? Just how we want it. I will change the total duration to, let's say, 8 seconds. Alright, let's preview it. Seems like I just brought my project to life. You can feel how the camera movement with a time-lapse has changed the dynamics of your project visualization. There is so much character to it. In the end, it's all about representation. You can also bring your projects to life with the Enscape video editor in just a matter of seconds. A quick tip for you: if you want to add a keyframe on the path itself, you can easily do that by clicking on it and your keyframe will be added. Let's export our video and I will later save my video path to keep a backup in case I ever want to use this again. Great! Now it's your turn to create a unique time-lapse video. Don't forget to pause the video so you can take all the time you need. Once you've made something you like, save the camera path and export the video as video file. Let's move on to the last part of this lesson. In this part, we will discuss the benefits of using visual styles in videos and importing camera paths of videos we've created previously. Then, we will combine multiple exported videos into one using a third-party video editing software. Before we finish our lesson, let's load one of the paths we saved earlier back in the video editor. I will import my path for the truck shot. There it is, safe and sound. I will now head over to Visual Settings and change the view style. Please note, all the changes I am making to my visual settings are being saved only to this preset called 06 Video. Now I will go under Styles and change the mode to white. Add a few outlines. Check the exposure. And splendid! Now, without changing anything to my video path, I will click Export. This will create the same video I had exported before in white mode. So I will have two video exports for the same path, but in different visual styles. I will now use an external video editor to quickly create a transition video from one visual style to the other. I am using DaVinci Resolve for this lesson. It's completely free and you can download it through your web browser. Let's overlay the two videos with white mode on top. I will trim the second half for the white visual style and add a cross-dissolve transition to the end. We only used DaVinci Resolve for combining the two clips. Now I will simply export the video and play it. You will be amazed how Enscape removes all those barriers by providing all your production needs inside your CAD. unleash your creativity and create much more using Enscape. Great! Now, for a last time in this lesson, please pause the video and work through the exercise steps you see written on the screen. Combine one of your previous videos with a new rendering in a different visual style. Once you're done with this, unpause the video again. We have to recap what we've learned in Lesson 6. Now you should have a firm grasp on how to create typical camera moves using keyframes in the Enscape video editor and how to save these videos both as video file and as camera path file. You've also learned how to combine clips with different visual styles to one single video file. Great! Give yourself a pat on the back. We are getting close to the end of the Enscape basic training. Let's check out what Lesson 7 has to offer. Welcome to Lesson 7 of the Enscape basic training. In this lesson, we will cover some cool tips and tricks to help you cross small obstacles on your learning path and assure a smoother and more efficient workflow using Enscape. We will start by looking into Enscape mouse settings, movement speed, and setting up the spectator height and width. I will start by clicking here, Enscape Window Settings. Here, you will see the Input tab. We will click on it and here we will see all the input options. The first option under Mouse Settings is the mouse speed, allowing you to adjust the speed of the mouse movement itself. Then we have Mouse Smoothing, which refers to the mouse-controlled camera rotation. For example, the look around and orbit function in Enscape. We can invert the mouse axis as well if needed. Then we have the movement speed. This adjusts how fast you move within the viewport using the move keys. This is my movement at the default speed. And here is an increased value of speed. The movement smoothing can be felt when moving around. You can adjust this as well. You can reset all values to default by simply clicking this reset icon next to the value of each slider. Height reference is quite an important setting when it comes to presenting walkthroughs or screenshots on a human scale. It refers to the walk mode only where the virtual viewer height can be defined. By default, an average human height and width is set. However, if you have designed something which is specific to a tall person, you can set that spectator height, and if you have designed something for kids, a kindergarten for example, it would be more relatable if your walkthroughs or screenshots reflect the height of a kid. The same applies for the width. For example, if the spectator width is set wider than this opening, you will not be able to pass through in the walk mode. Next, let's check out some more SketchUp focused tips. We'll review texture positioning in SketchUp and how to use section fill displays, how to work with sunlight and sections, and we'll compare lines versus faces. At times we use certain materials such as tiles or patterns where the origin of tessellation is very crucial to reflect the actual placement on the site, or to give that look which we expect after completion. To position your texture in SketchUp, all you have to do is to select and right-click the surface with your material. Click Texture and then Position. You will see your material surface spread out with 4 adjustable pins on it. We can move the texture. So if I want to position the vertical lines exactly at the edge of that building, I can do that with this move pin. Then there is the rotate pin, the scale or shear pin, and lastly, the distortion pin. You might notice that when you create a section, even if the section fill display is enabled in SketchUp, it is not translated to Enscape. I will show you a quick workaround for this, so your screenshot has the fills already in it. First, we will place a section, set parallel projection, align the view to cut and export the view as a section slice in DWG format. Now, we will import the DWG in an empty SketchUp file. Clean it up a bit if needed and create surfaces from section lines. Once you have surfaces ready, you can simply select all and fill in a color or texture of your choice for the section cut. I will choose the standard black. Now we can create a SketchUp group and copy it to your original project. Place it on the section cut, maybe 1 millimeter inwards, so it's not cut with the section itself. And there! Now you can see the fill in your Enscape viewport as well. Let's talk a bit more about sections, specifically sunlight in sections. SketchUp sections viewed in Enscape do not affect sunlight and shadows. Even with a section cut placed, the light will not change as there is no actual cut in the building. The light won't enter through the section cut. However, if you have an actual split building model, the light would then definitely enter through the cut as it actually exists in the model geometry. You have to model what you want to see. What that basically means in the context of SketchUp and Enscape is the difference between lines and surfaces. As you see here, I have a set of lines drawn in SketchUp, defining a second entry to the building, but I don't see it in Enscape. That's because it is not modeled as surfaces. If I now model these lines as surfaces in SketchUp, I can then see them inside Enscape as well. Hence, you have to model what you want to see. A very common problem users face are flickering surfaces inside Enscape. The reason for this is the overlapping surfaces inside your SketchUp model. So, as we see here, once I remove this overlapping surface, the flickering goes away. It is also possible that you see the flickering sometimes or it is less visible. This can happen when the overlapping surfaces have the same material, making it less visible. Once again, once you remove the overlapping surface, the flickering will stop.
Pretty cool, right? Next, we'll tackle some lighting-related topics. How artificial lights affect your performance, how to add color to artificial lights, how to prevent flickering sun shadows in time-lapse videos, how to make your shadows softer, and how to use skybox backgrounds.
Artificial lights and performance go hand in hand. Try to keep a balance in the overall lighting, illumination and brightness of the scene. Use the auto exposure slider and keep the individual light sources relatively dark or medium. Even though it's important to use lights where the design specifies,
If you use a lot of lights in the same space, meaning overlapping each other's effect, it can drive down performance. For example, I have marked 4 light positions here. However, they are too close and overlap each other's effect. That means if I replace the 4 lights with just 2, I still get the desired result. Every artificial light affecting any given point will need a little bit of performance demand. Try not to overdo it if you want a smooth experience on larger models. Adding color to artificial lights is as easy as a click. All you have to do is to select the color from SketchUp materials and apply it on the light object you want. That's it. When creating time-lapse videos, you might notice sudden flickers or a continuously flickering sun. This occurs due to dense clouds. You can change this by going to your Sky tab under Visual Settings and bringing the cloud density slider down. The flickering will stop. If you want to make the projected shadows softer, you can do that by going to your Visual Settings. Under the Atmosphere tab, bring down the Shadow Sharpness slider. You adjust this to have more softer or sharper shadows in your visuals.
Let's have a brief look at how we can use skyboxes for easy context for our scenes.
Go to Visual Settings and click on the Sky tab. Select Skybox in the Horizon Source drop-down menu. Load your image file as a skybox. And there it is. You can use any image format as skybox as long as it fits the aspect ratio 1:2 or 3:4. You can create your own 360 skybox image or simply get them online. Alright, final stretch. Last but not least, let's check out some more materials-focused tips and tricks. Let's review emissive materials and video textures. Emissive materials. Very often users confuse the emissive material type as an artificial light source. If I remove this artificial light source and instead change the material type for my lamp glass as self-illuminated, it will light up for sure, but it will not light my scene or surroundings. It will just light the surface. If we increase the illuminance for that material, it could be strong enough to light up a scene, but it will create the firefly effect. You will see these flickering dots all over the screen. As this is not considered an artificial light as such, it is a material that emits light. It can be used for TV screens, LCDs, logos, and text on a building, for example, that lights up at night, and so on. You have a nice TV screen in your model and wondering how to add an actual video playing on it? All you need is a video texture. Video textures are no different than any other textures in your model. Create a surface you want to apply the texture to, apply a color or any other material to that surface. Go to the Enscape material editor, choose that material, Change the material type to self-illuminated. Your screen is now powered on. Next, we will click on the texture folder icon. Now select the video you want to replace the texture with. And that's it. Your video texture is ready. Before we review what we've covered over the past hours, here's the last slide touching on some performance, quality, and team collaboration issues. If you've experienced bad performance with Enscape, like a low frame rate, or crashing when trying to render, or when collaborating with your team, feel free to pause this slide and read through these tips. On top of that, if you have more individual issues, if you're curious to learn more about how Enscape works in certain situations, or if you just want to share your art or your opinion, we've got a few online resources I'd like to make you familiar with. You can access all of them through our website www.enscape3d.com. First of all, the knowledge base. Well curated and up to date for every supported platform, you can find it under Resources. Here, you can find most of the topics we covered and many more in written form, so you don't have to refer to this video, but rather look up any detail you might need that very moment. Forum. This is where the Enscape community shares their insights and renderings, as well as troubleshooting and constructive criticism. Feel free to sign up and get in touch with the most experienced Enscape users, as well as the Enscape team. Product board. The Enscape roadmap. You can find it under Product, Features, scrolling all the way down. This is where you can tell us what's missing in Enscape, what you would like to see improved or removed, and you can get a glimpse of what's planned for the future and what we're currently working on. Lastly, if all of the previous points of contact didn't help solving your issue, feel free to reach out to our support team for individual case-by-case consultation. To reach them, you can either press the feedback button in the Enscape toolbar in your host software, or under Resources, you can find the Help Center. Here, by clicking Submit a Request, you can write a message directly to our technical support team. Great job! You've made it through the Enscape basic training. We've explored navigation and interaction between SketchUp and Enscape, how to set dress your project and make it pretty with assets, materials, and lighting. We've discussed fundamental visualization principles like image composition for various use cases, camera movement types, managing and sharing 360-degree panoramas and standalone files. Take a deep breath. You're now an Enscape visualization artist. Use the knowledge you've acquired to easily and quickly visualize your projects in the future, confident you know how things work in the background.
And since you've followed the entire training, we want to ask you for a little help learning and getting better ourselves. You will now see a link displayed over this video, leading to a survey where you can share feedback on this particular training course with us. Please consider participating, it really helps a lot. We hope to see you around in the forums sharing the amazing designs you're going to create. Have lots of success using Enscape. Goodbye.